What do we learn about David while he was living in Ziklag? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verses 1 to 15. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, 1 Chronicles chapter 12, beginning at verse 1. Now these were the men who came to David at Ziklag while he was still a fugitive from Saul the son of Kish. And they were among the mighty men, helpers in the war, armed with bows, using both the right hand and the left in hurling stones and shooting arrows with the bow. They were of Benjamin, Saul's brethren. The chief was Ahiezer, then Joash, the sons of Shema, the Gibeathite, Jeziel and Pelet, the sons of Asmaveth, Barakah and Jehu, the Anathite, Ishmaiah the Gibeonite, a mighty man among the 30, and over the 30, Jeremiah, Jahaziel, Johanan, and Jozabad, the Gederathite, Eluzai, Jeremoth, Beliah, Shemariah, and Shephatiah, the Haruphite, Elkanah, Jishiah, Azarel, Jozer, and Jashobim, the Korathites, and Jaliel, and Zebediah, the sons of Jehoram of Gedor. Some of the Gadites joined David at the stronghold in the wilderness, mighty men of valor, men trained for battle who could handle the shield and spear, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as gazelles in the mountains. Ezer the first, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmanah the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, and Machbanai the 11th. These were from the sons of Gad, captains of the army. The least was over 100, and the greatest was over 1,000. These are the ones who crossed the Jordan in the first month, when it had overflowed all its banks, and they put to flight all those in the valleys, to the east and to the west. Over the last few lessons, we've been looking at David's mighty men, the ones that were listed among his men around the time when he became king over all Israel. This large list of names shows us that when David became king, he had a large contingent of followers. However, at the time of that list, David had already been king for 7.5 years by that point. So that David had a large following, although impressive, should not really surprise us, seeing as how Judah was behind him being king. However, chapter 12 points us to a time period before that, and a time when David was on the run from King Saul. And even then, David had a large following of men who believed that King Saul was mistreating David. There were even men among Saul's tribe of Benjamin who believed this, and therefore joined David's cause. The place that this beginning of the chapter takes place in is Ziklag, a city that is southwest of Judah and was at the time controlled by the Philistines. We read of this time period in 1 Samuel chapter 27 and 30, and so I would like us to refresh our memories about this time period. First, 1 Samuel 27 verses 5 to 9. Then David said to Achish, "If I have now found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?" So Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. For those nations were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away the sheep, oxen, the donkeys, the camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. 1 Samuel takes place in the final 16 months of King Saul's reign. And since we know from 2 Samuel 5 verse 4 that David was 30 years old when he began to reign, we know that here David is anywhere from 28 to 29 years old. David was given Ziklag by Achish to dwell in, and that became a city of the kings of Judah from that point on. But David didn't lounge about while at Ziklag. He raided the surrounding peoples that were allies of the Philistines, unbeknownst to Achish. This would have required men, some of which we are named here in 1 Chronicles 12. Another event that happened to David at Ziklag is found in 1 Samuel 30, verses 1 to 10. Now it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there, from small to great, that they did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burnt with fire, and their wives, their sons, and their daughters had been taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept, until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the son of Nabal the Carmelite, had been taken captive. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, Please bring the ephod here to me. And Abiathar brought the ephod to David. So David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered him, Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and the 600 men who came with him, and they came to the brook Besor, where those stayed who were left behind. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 stayed behind, who were so weary that they could not cross the brook Besor. This event was something that was harrowing for these men, for the Amalekites had kidnapped these people's families, including the wives of David. But if you read chapter 30, you'll find that David and his men were victorious, thus regaining all the people that the Amalekites had taken. Again, this type of assault would have required men, which again, some of which are listed here in 1 Chronicles chapter 12. But it wasn't just the tribe of Benjamin who came to the aid of David while he was on the run from Saul. It was men from the tribe of Gad as well. Remember, the tribe of Gad lived on the east side of the Jordan, so to get to one of the many strongholds that David went to while on the run would have required that they cross the Jordan. And we're told here that they did so in the first month of the year, when the banks of the Jordan had overflowed. The first month of the year was around Passover time, late March, early April, and so that the Jordan was overflowed is due to the snow melt from the higher ground during the past winter. Crossing the Jordan at this time of the year would have been dangerous, but these men did it anyway because they believed in their cause. So while these names are hard to pronounce, they're given to us to signify that these not only are real people from real places, but that they came to David because they thought his cause was righteous and they wanted to be a part of that. If David was to be a mighty king, he must have the ability to draw people to himself, something that David did not only do while king, but before becoming king. We don't know much, if anything, about the names mentioned here, so we'll leave that. We'll leave it at that for now. We'll continue with David's mighty men, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verses 16 to 22, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.